Members of Congress returned to Capitol Hill today following this weekend's dramatic vote to avoid a government shutdown.
That's right, but the work far from over. House members now have to figure out how to fund the government after November 17th.
Yeah, and they have to do it amid a new push to remove House Speaker Kevin McCarthy by members of his own party.
So the drama, to say the least, has just begun. Joining us this morning is Bronx Congressman and Democrat Ritchie Torres to talk more about this. Congressman, good to see you on a very busy Monday.
Of course. Honored to be here. I'm doing better than Kevin McCarthy at the moment.
So let's speak about Kevin McCarthy for a second, right? Because he fought hard to become the speaker, right? Took, 15 tries. This weekend, he put it all on the line to avoid the shutdown. So these hardline Republicans like Matt Gaetz say he plans on asking McCarthy to step down. Are the votes there for that to actually happen?
We're about to enter uncharted territory, so only time will tell. But I've been in government for about 2 decades, and I've never seen as much incompetence and dysfunction and extremism as I've seen from House Republicans. And as you pointed out, one member of the House, like Matt Gaetz, could file a motion to vacate, a motion to remove the Speaker, which is entitled to a vote within 2 days. And Matt Gaetz has publicly announced that he intends to move forward with a motion to vacate. But even without a motion to vacate, there's been a coup d'etat within the Republican Party. Kevin McCarthy is not in charge of the House Republican Conference. The House Freedom Caucus is in charge. And as a result, we've seen nothing but an endless stream of crisis. We went from the longest speaker vote in more than 150 years to a near default on the nation's debt to a near government shutdown. It's been nothing but chaos, crisis, and confusion under the leadership, the so-called leadership of Kevin McCarthy.
But do you think, are Democrats going to back him and support McCarthy?
But the burden falls on Speaker McCarthy to reach out to the Democratic caucus. For me, this is not a decision that I will make individually. It's a decision that we as a caucus will make collectively. And the burden falls on Speaker McCarthy to reach out to the caucus.
Right, so will you vote to remove him?
Well, it's a leadership level decision. So Hakeem Jeffries is the leader of the Democratic caucus, and I'm ultimately going to defer to his judgment.
There was a lot of finger pointing, though. People saying that the Democrats were trying to delay the vote. In fact, Congressman Jamal Bowman was accused of setting off a fire alarm, right, to buy Democrats more time. But then he was saying, well, I wasn't trying to delay the vote. I was actually trying to get to the vote. Have you spoken with him, and did he explain to you what exactly happened with him pulling the fire alarm?
I've not spoken to him, but I want to be clear. There's no finger pointing, right? It is a fact that Republicans did not have the votes to prevent a government shutdown. We cast the votes that got the job done, right? It is a fact that Republicans did not have the votes to raise the debt limit ceiling. We provided the votes that got the job done. As for Congressman Bowman, I have not spoken to him, but there's a review underway, and people should allow the facts to be revealed before rushing to judgment. And there's no evidence that he pulled the fire alarm in an attempt to disrupt the vote. I mean, that's just pure political speculation. So instead of speculating and rushing to judgment, we should allow the review to play out.
Okay. So here we are. We're in this extension, right, for 45 days, which some have said will go 45 days, and then we'll be in this predicament all over again, right? So what happens in the next 45 days to avoid a down-to-the-wire decision?
Well, assuming he remains Speaker, it all depends on Speaker McCarthy, right? There are 4 leaders in Congress. There's the Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell, the House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries. All of them have been willing to govern on a bipartisan basis. The only holdouts, the only obstacle to bipartisanship has been Kevin McCarthy. And so he needs to stand up to the far right of the Republican Party and partner with Leader Jeffries to govern the House on a bipartisan basis. That's the leadership challenge that he faces.
Yeah. Well, this is all happening, though, against the backdrop of the impeachment inquiry and the death of Senator Dianne Feinstein and her newly named replacement. So what do you think the likelihood is that a spending bill could be passed by mid-November?
I'm cautiously optimistic that we will get it done against all odds because we've overcome the odds in the past. But, since you brought up the impeachment proceeding, it's worth noting that there has been a breach of trust between Speaker McCarthy and House Democrats. Right? He reneged on his deal with the president in the wake of the debt limit. He opened a kangaroo impeachment inquiry into President Biden. and he put on the floor a continuing resolution without following the 72-hour rule. He was supposed to give us 72 hours to review the legislation. We did not even get 72 minutes.
Okay.
And so there's been a consistent breach of trust that undermines bipartisanship in the House.
Yeah. I want to turn now, Congressman, to the migrant crisis and get your reactions to comments made by Mayor Adams' chief advisor, Ingrid Lewis-Martin, over the weekend. She addressed members of Congress. Take a listen here.
The federal government needs to do its job. We need the federal government, the Congress members, the Senate, and the president to do its job. Close the borders.
Now, they went on to clarify that after that comment, saying they actually meant to say that they are welcoming to immigrants. But I wanted to get your thoughts and your reaction, since you did mention members of Congress.
Well, I reject the rhetoric about closing borders. The greatest advantage of the United States over the rest of the world is our ability to attract immigrants from every corner of the earth to drive both our entrepreneurial and our essential workforce. Without immigrants, there are whole sectors of our economy, agriculture, construction, hospitality, home care, that would come to a grinding halt, and that's something that we should keep in mind. But what we need is a system by which we can absorb migration in an orderly manner. You cannot have a situation where governors are busing migrants, to one city like New York. So I agree that our immigration system is broken, and it needs to be reformed by Congress. But the greatest stumbling block to reform is the Republican Party, which would rather demagogue the issue rather than solve the problem.
Understood. Congressman Ritchie Torres, appreciate your time on all these issues this morning.
Always a pleasure.